What's up, coding rabbits? My name is Sean. Welcome to Live Coding with RabbitWerks JavaScript. Tonight is episode 13 of the Vue Basics series, kind of a bonus episode. It's going to be looking at the new Vue-Function-Api. So, just a disclaimer really quick. This documentation is all completely copy-paste from the link in the description. The Vue-Function-Api docs, basically the README for the pull request or whatever for the code for this. So we're just going to be taking a look at that. I figured it's easier to look at it in the browser or whatnot. So anyways, yeah, thanks for tuning in and let's get started. So what we're going to do is kind of look through the idea of what this new function API is going to look like, and in doing so we'll also take a look at some of the mini apps that we've made throughout this series and see if we can't convert them over to use the function API versus the function-based API versus the object-based API, which we're familiar with. So let's just take a look at the docs first and see what it has to say. So right away it has a link that you can go check out the RFC, the request for comments. Give your feedback if you have any opinions on what you think about the new API. That would be, everybody is welcome to throw their 2 cents in. That's the point of an RFC. Anyways, okay, so future-oriented programming. The Vue Function API provides function API from Vue 3.0 or 3.x to Vue.x for developing next generation of Vue applications. So basically means we can use next version's API in Vue 2 apps, the version that's out right now, what we're all been learning and stuff. And so let's see, we can take a look. It looks like we can use it as a CDN as well. They do have a CDN package, but before we do that, just an FYI for anybody that is concerned about Vue being, or Vue 3 being breaking or anything like that. I know that there's been a lot of clarification on that, but just to reiterate, the Vue 3 update is completely additive. It's non-breaking. It's basically just an optimized version of Vue using like a function-based API. So everything, you'll still be able to write Vue apps exactly the same way that you're used to with the object-based API, and you'll also be able to work with the function-based API as well. So that's gonna be cool. It's kind of the best of both worlds, and that was completely due to the response of the community in an uproar, essentially, about worrying about it being a breaking change with the new API and all this stuff. Everybody just learned this new framework, and they're going to completely turn it into, you know, what people were saying is essentially React, but it's not necessarily React. It's, you know, it's Vue. It's kind of like React is going towards the function-based API, or like a function-based, like hooks, React hooks and stuff like that. That's kind of like a function-based API as well. So that's kind of where everything is getting inspired from in this standpoint. So enough talk. Let's see what we can take a look at. Looks like Michael was able to stop by from HTML All the Things. Thanks for tuning in, dude. So installation. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through the installation through npm. We can also take a look and try out the package as well, because I know that we have our intro to Vue projects. It's essentially just, this would actually probably be a good place to start out because it's really basic examples. And it would be a really good place to kind of switch stuff out, because we could just take all of this and just recreate it with the Vue. So I think we'll do that first and then see where we're at. So, cool. All right, so what do we gotta do? I want to split this off. And that over here, close that. Okay, so the usage, I think this is if we are we have to register it. We'll have to see if we have to register it. I don't know if we'll have to register it or not. So let's just see. If we can look that up really quick. Let's see. Let's see. I don't know. We can try it. Let's just put it in there and see what happens. Alright, so take that. Do we have to get rid of Vue right here then? I'm assuming? Or maybe not, because we need Vue still. So let's put it in underneath it. Just like that. And well, we can just give it a shot, I guess, and see what happens. So let's take a look at this. So this is in a single file component, but if we were going to do this, let's see. I'm gonna actually look and see if there's another way I can look this up, because we're just learning as we go, flying blind. Alright, Vue function API CDM install. Nope. 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 This isn't gonna tell me anything differently. Well, we can try and just say
delicious coffee on the street, no branding, on purpose no branding, because we didn't want any barriers. There was no door, no windows. People could walk into the espresso machine, see what we were doing.
okay. Excuse me. Let's go like this. Okay, so const equals, or wait, I need to find where was the documentation that I was seeing. Where is it? Down here. Watch. No. Okay, here. So here's like an example, I think, of what I'm trying to find. So const equals, so it's an object. And there's a setup function inside of it. And inside of there, we can, let's just try. So if we import it as a package with a CDN, do we have to pull stuff in with import statements still? Let's try just on its own. So pulling in, looks like this example is using the lifecycle hooks, the new lifecycle hooks using actual function hooks or whatever to call them. And you can see that when we switch over to the single file component stuff, you import it from Vue-Function-Api package, but we don't have that package installed. We're importing it from the CDN right now, because this is just a static HTML file with a Vue, with some Vue code in it. So let's see what happens, and if we need to change it, we can change it. Okay, so it's a function. Unmounted is a function that runs at the mounted lifecycle hook point, and we can just say console.log it works. All right. And I guess if we wanted to initialize a variable, excuse me, what we could do is, okay, so setup, a new component option, setup is introduced. As the name suggests, this is the place where we use the function-based APIs to set up the logic of our component. Setup is called when an instance of the component is created after the props resolution. So once props resolve, the function receives the resolved props as its first argument. So you can see right here, this is props, and then setup is an object in this case, and then setup right here receives props as its first argument. And the second argument provides a context object which exposes a number of properties that were previously exposed on the 2x APIs. So this is kind of like what context is to Vuex in a sense, because they have context in Vuex is essentially its version of this or whatever, available in actions. So this is kind of like extracted to the same thing. It's all extracted like to one spot, all inside of this context object, instead of it being separate pieces inside of the Vue prototype. I think that's, I don't know, not sure. We'll have to see. Anyways, okay, so value, this is how we need to instantiate a new data property essentially. So if we want to come down here, we can actually just try and create this. So we can say const so what's all going on here? First of all, we have this is actually the third one. What's going on with this one? Let's actually switch over to the first one. Okay, so I'm going to take this script and copy that over to the first one. So episode1.html if you're following along with the code at all. And I'm just going to grab this const app fn out of here. I think that's all we did so far. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that in there. Reason being is because there's a lot of like Vue directive stuff going on in this one, and I want to just kind of focus on the more so of the actual Vue instance, because the directives aren't changing. They're all gonna work the same. So we want to look closer at the actual Vue instance because we know how the directives work. So all right. So we have the same thing. We have our app function, const, and this is where we're going to declare it. So a little bit differently, we don't have a data object anymore. Clearly, we use the API, the value function, essentially, to create an object containing a single property, value property, with the value of whatever we passed into the function here. So I guess that helps it Vue stay completely up to date no matter what kind of changes happen. versus like trying to make references to a certain data point. I don't know. So it's still, you know, a lot of up in the airedness. A lot of this could completely change too, so take it with a grain of salt of what you're taking in right now. It could completely turn around tomorrow as far as we know, so that's kind of the up in the airedness about it. So all right, so we're initializing a variable and we're going to just do the title right now. So we'll say title equals, and then we'll have to say value, which is a function that takes some sort of value. And so in this case, it's going to be a string, and it's going to say intro to Vue. And we'll probably have to comment this stuff out. I feel like the setup function might need, or does it need an L property for the inline stuff? I don't know. Okay, let's just open this file and see what happens. So, oh, not that. Let's open it with live server. Nope, not that. There we go. That is huge. Let's see what happens here. Alright, so we don't have a console log. I think that's because we need to figure out. Let's try. Oops, not that. Not that either. Couple more minutes trying this, otherwise I'm going to switch to just using it inline, or not inline, but as a package. Oh, it says right here. Oh. By using, where is it? Right here. It says right there. By using the global variable window.Vue-Function-Api. So, what does that mean? Console.log window.Vue-Function-Api. Alright, so look at that, we got something. Alright, so sweet. So it's in there. Do we still have to import it though? That's what I want to know. Jesus, go away. Jeez Louise. Window.Function-Api. Inside of here maybe, so const unmounted equals window.Vue-Function-Api, maybe. What is that? No. Oh, I can't do it in there. I have to do it. So that's an object, so it has to be a property. So it would be like unmounted, something like that. Dot unmounted. Let's take a look at this really quick. I need to bring this over here. Bring it over here. Close that out for now. We can minimize that so we can have a little better look at all this stuff. Unmounted. Okay, so that doesn't work. Okay, well, I do not quite sure how to get this working right now. I'll have to look into the docs or try and find it somewhere. But let's go over to a different project that's built with the Vue CLI and bring it in via npm, because then we'll have it kind of set up for us. Excuse me. Alright, so let's see. Hello world, what do we got here? This is custom events. Dynamic. Okay, actually this would be a good one to do because we can just switch out our dashboard and our settings.vue component. So wonderful. Okay. Oops. Alright, where are we at with things? Okay, so we got this dashboard component. Let's actually spin this up so we can close. Well, let's just spin this up first. So, and it's actually cd into that directory. Okay, so it's the dynamic components directory. We'll just close that. Do dynamic components. Excuse me. Alright, so inside of here, I just want to ls so I can see we do have everything in there, and we'll just do let's try doing Vue add function API. I don't know if that's gonna work or not, but we'll give it a shot and see. Oh, okay. It doesn't look like that's available. So let's do npm then. So npm what was it? Under shoot. Was it just function-based API or function API? Let's see, a guide, episode. Oh, I missed a hyphen on that one. Shoot. What is it? Function Vue function API -- save. I don't think the -- save is required anymore these days, but oh, this is hello world. Okay, here in this component, dashboard npm I. So we're inside of the dynamic components folder, and we're gonna install. So npm I Vue-Function-Api, and then it's recommended to do -- save. Put it in our dependencies because it's gonna be built. We don't need it in production. All right, cool. Found 457 high severity vulnerabilities. Wow. I think that's probably alright because this isn't like a production ready thing and it's not advised to use it in production. And I think this is probably typical right now because it's not finished. So I don't know, I guess install at your own risk, but that's what you install because it's where is it? Come on, it keeps opening folders I don't want to open. Okay, the guide episode 13, open preview. Okay, so function Vue API -- save. Okay, next thing we gotta do is bring in the looks like the plugin object from the Vue function API package. So we can close this and that as well. And so this is going to be inside of the main JS file. So inside of here, we will go and say, well, we'll do it right after Vue, but before the importing the app, we'll say import, and we have to destructure the plugin object out of the Vue function API package. All right, so we have that. Single file for Vue. Oh, we might not be able to. It's probably installing inside of this. I would probably have to open it up inside of that, or as the project root. So, well, let's see. All right, so Vue Basics, dynamic components, and we'll just open this thing as is right here, and let's bring this into this. Did it bring it? No. Goodness. All right. All right, welcome. Thank you. Appreciate the warm welcome. Open up the terminal, why don't we? And now let's see where we at. We in this directory now. Oh, it did install it into this. Wait a second here. Yeah, it's right here. What the heck am I talking about? Let me see. What the heck am I talking about? Let me see. What is this talking about? Oh, I wonder if it's... I just keep opening that. Stop. Is that the wrong main JS? Oh, it is the wrong main JS. No wonder why it's not working. Jeez. Okay. So, make sure we're in the right folder structure here, people. Come on now. Alright, so inside of the main.js folder or file inside of the dynamic components project, we can import the destructure. Okay, so let's go through this one more time. So we'll import, so we need to destructure the plugin object out of the Vue-Function-Api module. So now that we have that taken care of, the last thing we need to do is just install it, and we install plugins just like we would using vuex or the router. So we do Vue.use, and that's a function that we invoke, and we pass the plugin that we want to invoke or install into Vue, into the Vue prototype, into this function. Okay, so we just pass in plugin like that. Alright, cool. Now, that should be all that we need to do to get it up and running. So let's give it a shot. So instead of this hello world view, we need to open up. Stop opening this folder, dang it. This dashboard right here. Okay. So this is a really basic component. I'm going to spin this up so we can take a look at it. npm run serve to spin up our front end server. So again, this is just a super simple Vue component that demonstrated basically what this was made for, was to demonstrate the dynamic components that we can use inside of Vue. But you can see there's some really basic examples here. So we got basically just a simple click listener, which we'll probably switch that out from method. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But some data stuff that we'll just switch out essentially that we want to use inside of our template, and then we'll look into the next part of it. All right, so this is spinning, or this is running now. Let's bring it over here. And this is what we have. Remember, we got our dashboard here, and it's got that keep alive tag around it, and the app.vue, it's got this keep alive tag so the data persists or whatever. Otherwise this count will go back to 0 if we switch to settings and went to dashboard, just like that. All right, enough of that. We're not talking about the dynamic components. We are going to look at the Vue 3 API. Okay, so what we want to do, let's see, where is that? Let's take a look at the example here. So it looks like export default. So I wonder if we would just have to call new view on the other one, call new view, and then pass in an object, and then it would just contain setup. That's probably what we have to do. I'm willing to bet. We'll have to check it out after this, but okay. So there's three things we have here. There's a title, there's content, and then there's count. Count right here as well. Obviously, there's it right here. So we need to, let's actually just comment that out because we don't have the data object like that. But what we have instead is this whole setup function. And so what we need to do is we need to import what we're going to use from Vue, the Vue-Function-Api. So if you've worked with like React and stuff like that, React Native and whatnot, you import different components or different like primitive components or whatever that are and pieces of the framework or the library that you want to use, so you're not bringing in everything. So in this case we're bringing in the value, computed, watched, and unmounted lifecycle hook from this package, and they're being all used. So you use what you need and you don't bring in the rest of the stuff that you don't. Okay, so above this we're going to start by writing our setup function. So it's essentially this is where our instance or all of our setup logic will live, our instance building logic and whatnot. So excuse me. So setup, and in here, oh, you know what we need to do before I even go that far is going up to the top there. Do we need to import Vue from Vue? Do we see? Really? No way. Alright, well, I don't think we need to import Vue, so let's just, I think that's just an example for like, because it's not imported anywhere else in the app or whatever, so to speak. Let's just try bringing in what we need first. So let's import an object, and we'll fill it in just a second, but we're going to bring it in from the Vue API right there, Vue-Function-Api. And the first thing we're going to bring in from that package is the value, right? Excuse me. Interesting. That's pretty interesting. Okay. Anyways, getting distracted. Okay, so we have the setup function, and that's being called for our Vue instance. And inside of here, we want to get a couple different things. We want to get title, content, and count. So 3 different variables. So let's first do title. So we'll say const title equals, and then as we were saying before, we need to call, or this value right here is actually a function that we pass some sort of value or some sort of data into, and Vue turns it into essentially an object with one value inside of it, and that is what is used to keep track of what, you know, what data is what, essentially. I hope that makes sense. It probably doesn't make sense that much, but versus like being a reference to something, it's like the actual value. So the main idea behind it is that it will always be the most current up-to-date value, going about it this way. All right, so title, we want it to be a string, and it's going to be dashboard, just like that. Actually, I don't think we... Oh wait, no, we do, because it's just a function. Right? Yeah, okay, so there we go. Oh, dashboard. Excuse me. Goodness. Okay, the next thing we want is and you'll notice we won't be able to see it. We want, okay, so for a reference, let's bring our data, our old instance back really quick so we can see it. So we have the dashboard, and this is an awesome dashboard, yo, and we have 0 for the count value. Okay. So you'll notice when I take this, when I take that out, even though we have this title variable inside, or, you know, declared now, it's not showing up in our instance. And that's because before we can use anything that's inside of our Vue instance here, we need to essentially return it in a new object, kind of like how the data function returns a new object. It kind of, this whole setup function kind of works the same way, where it has to return an object containing any of the variables that we have inside of our Vue instance that we want to use inside of up here in our template. So once we get the rest of them in here, it'll make a little bit more sense. But let's actually return the title, and we can actually see that happen right now. So oops. And we'll say return, and we just return a new object, and then we just, inside of here, we just return the value or the variables that we have up in our template. And already you can see right away it's already updating here. So you can see the dashboard showed up, and if I comment out this return one more time, you can see that it'll disappear, and we bring in this return statement and it's back. So cool, you can see that it's working, and now we have this truly, what do they call it, truly dynamic, truly reactive front end, or values and whatnot. So let's keep going. We need to get two more. We have the content and the count to go. So const, there's probably a better way to declare multiple thing or multiple variables like this, data properties. I'm not sure exactly. I'm sure we'll figure it out at some point, or they'll release documentation about it. But I mean, it's probably going to be, who knows? I don't know. It's like some sort of thing to do with arrays or objects passed into it and whatnot. But if you pass an object into this, then I believe that the whole thing just becomes a reactive object essentially. So I'm not 100% sure, so we'll have to see what happens with it. Again, all this stuff could change at any time. So next thing is the content that we want to do, and that is content. So const content equals value, and then we'll pass in a string, and that's going to say this is an awesome dashboard, yo. Cool, just like that. And then now if we just add that to our return object down here, we can have it pop up back into the template just like that. Cool. And the last thing we want to do is a count. So we'll again say, we're going to say const count equals value. And in this, since it's a number, we can just pass in a number into this, just like so. And then let's see. Cool. Let's take a look at this really quick. See. So now that we have this going on, we need to also return count in our return object as well, and then we should have it available. And you can see that it still works. We still have this count plus plus is still technically working. Let's look at a couple of different ways that we can do that though, or another way that we can do that, going about it using a method, a new way to write methods inside of the Vue 3 function API and whatnot. So we can we'll keep the click listener, for now, and we'll just call it a function. So let's say add 3. It will be the name of our function. Okay, so for the functions, we don't, for the methods and stuff, we don't have to import any type of property or anything from the Vue function API. We just write an inline arrow function essentially, or a functional arrow function. So declare right here, we'll say const add 3, which is the name of the method or the function that we're writing, passing in right here to the click listener. And add 3 is going to be equal to a function, an arrow function. So if we wanted to pass in a parameter right here, we could do that. But we don't have any parameters we're passing in right now, so we'll just do an empty arrow function. And inside of here, it's going to say count.value, and then we'll say plus equals 3, just like that. Right now, so when we click this button now, it should add 3 to count every time. Oh, and also because like everything, or like because we're using this inside of the Vue template, we also need to return this variable containing this function inside of our data, our return data object. So underneath here, underneath count, we'll just write in add 3, just like so. And now if we click it, we should have it add 3. So cool, it works. That's pretty dope. And it's pretty simple. I mean, when you look at it for a first time, it can look really intimidating. But once you like kind of look at it piece by piece and see where it compares to the old API versus this API, you can really see the benefits of it. You kind of see how it really is the same thing, just looking like a new, a function-based syntax, a little bit more elegant, updated syntax. So it's actually quite nice. I mean, this is the first time I'm really using it, and it seems like it's fairly intuitive for somebody who has some, a mild exposure to Vue already. So keep that in mind, all the naysayers and whatnot. So okay, let's see here. What is our other one here? We got the dashboard, we got this counter, settings over here, and still keeps it. That's pretty cool. We don't have to change anything in our template. Our template can stay exactly the same because we're just returning our variables in a new way this time. Okay, so we can do here, let's take a look at, we have data in here. What we could do is pass in, oh, we can't really pass it in because this is a dynamic component. I was going to say we can pass in some props. I mean, we could, but it'll be showing up in each of the components, which I guess wouldn't matter. But anyways, we'll do that in maybe we'll have to do it in the custom events sandbox, maybe. I don't know, we'll figure it out. If we need to bring in props, we'll bring in props after this. But or actually, I got it. So inside of our dynamic components, let's say we have a user that's logged in. So we have data in here, and this is in Vue 2. So we have data in here. We have like a user, and it's gonna be an object, and I'll have a name. Actually, let's not make it so complex. Let's just do a name, and we'll do Sean Rabbit, and then is mod, or let's do is admin. I'll say true. All right, so two just arbitrary properties or whatever inside of our data object that we're returning. But what we want to do is we'll pass it into the component tag, and this should give us access to those props in both the dashboard and the settings component, like if we needed it both. So we'll say, oops, Where are we at here? Go away. Pop-up screen. Name and is admin. So name equals name and is admin. I guess we could just pass this. Well, no, we couldn't. So is admin equals is admin, just like that. So we're passing these two, the name property and the is admin property, into this component, which is either the dashboard or the settings component via props. So let's say instead of doing this yo here, let's put our name there. All right, so let's what we need to do is use a computed to do that. And before we do that, we need to bring in our props. So the thing that happens before, or what was it? Before we do anything, any type of like data property variable declaration, we need to where is it? We need to make sure we pass in props to our setup object or our setup function here. So props is automatically passed in as the first argument, just as such. And so if we were to say at the beginning of this, if we just say console.log props, just like that, and let's give ourselves the inspector, give ourselves a refresh here. Is this coming from that? Yeah, okay, so maybe can we pass it in like that? Maybe. I don't think. Maybe we can't pass them into the dynamic components like that as props. Should be able to though. Let's take a look at the Vue dev tools and see what's inside of there. Bring that over here just a tad. Dashboard. Oh, it's in adders. Oh, because, well, wait a second. Can I pass? So it's in is adders because we don't have it defined in this one the way. So technically it's sitting, okay, so if we look at this, I'm looking at this right now. So we passed props in right there. Technically right now these variables are sitting in the context.adders, but I want them to be passed in as, do we need to do this object up here beforehand? I think actually prop validation or essentially. So if I were to say props like that, and it's an object, and inside of here we're going to do name, and name is a string, just like that. And then we'll do, what was the other thing? Oh, is admin, and that was a boolean, just like that. Now if we pass this object into this, do we get it? Okay, we got it. Oh, yes. All right, so inside of this object, then we have is admin, which is true, and name, which is Sean Rabbit. So I hope you see what's going on here. Instead of there being actual just references to data to different properties and whatnot, they're actually like functions that run essentially that get the most up-to-date value stored in that spot versus just being a reference in memory to that locate or to that data thing. So you can see when I click here, that kind of is when it has this inside of the dev tools like here, that's kind of an indication that that is like a getter or whatever, you know, an invoked property getter. So it's invoking a function that'll go and retrieve the most up-to-date values of these properties, props being passed in. The same thing goes for when we call value, when value is being referenced inside of our template, it's calling this value on site or whatever, and it's getting the most up-to-date, it's calling this function and getting the most up-to-date value of this variable, which gets kind of processed into an object with one property inside of it containing the sole value of that variable. So I hope that's making sense. I do a little bit. I mean, you can watch the Vue Mastery, all the talks from from VueConf. They have all the good talks on there about the new API and the like ins and outs of it. Programming with Eric, his channel, he has a video on Vue 3 as well, so that's pretty cool. You should go check that out. I can link that in the description as well. He's got some really good insight on the new what stuff going forward, you know, with the whole Vue ecosystem and whatnot. So definitely go check his channel out if you're into that, for sure. All right, so now we have our names, and just to make sure that we have them in the right place and they're not in fact showing up improperly. See, they're in props here. We have is admin true, Sean is or name is Sean Rabbit. And maybe we should just update this so it says works. All right, cool. Now we're all happy. Okay, so I want this to say this is an awesome dashboard, Sean RabbitWerks, instead of just saying yo. All right, so how do we do that? So we can say let's first start by getting rid of this, just like that. We don't need the exclamation mark in there. We can just have this is an awesome dashboard as such. That's content, and then what we need to do is first start by actually bringing in computed, because computed is one of these properties objects inside of the Vue-Function-Api package or module. So just like value, we have to bring in computed, just like that. And computed is essentially just another function that we can run that will compute some values and watch those values essentially, and if those values change, if the dependency values changed, it will rerun the function and return a new value, the updated value based on the dependency's current or most updated values, just like a computed property, but it's running a function. We're specifically running this function instead of it being inside of an object or whatever, our functions being inside of an object. So all right, cool. So let's we have it inside, we have it destructured or importedly destructured in, and now let's write that. So underneath this add 3, which is just a method, or actually above that, we'll actually try and keep in conjunction with how the layout of a Vue component works, and methods would be underneath computed properties in the hierarchy or whatever, the visual hierarchy of it. So same thing, const, and then this is going to be so we'll say full content, which is going to equal function that runs computed. Let's actually double check, I'm not 100% sure. Let's see, I don't know off the top of my head. So computed right here, so const +1 equals computed, and then we pass in a function, an arrow function with the computed expression that we want it to run. So let's do that. Okay, not like that. So const full content equals computed, and then that is a function that we pass a function into as a callback, and then we want to say it's going to essentially return. So we could open up a function body inside of here if we wanted to do a bunch of stuff, but we can also just implicitly do the implicit return statement with an arrow function like this. Again, if we wanted to pass in parameters, we would do it inside of this arrow function, but we don't need it inside of here where it gets invoked like a normal arrow function. We won't need to worry about that though. So we're just going to say we're going to return oh no, we can just say this dot, or wait, is it that? No, it's not this, because we're not doing it like that. What is it? It would just be title, or not title, I'm sorry, content, oh, maybe we do want to do it. Okay, so let's do template string, and we'll do content, and then so it's going to say inside of content, it'll say this is an awesome dashboard. Then we want to put a comma, and then we'll have the name. So the name is going to be inside of props.name, just like that. All right, cool. So then that should be all that we need to do for that. Now if we plug this right here into this object, we should have it, and we plug it into our template after that, we should have this new updated statement. And if we changed the name, it would update in our dashboard, or it would update in the DOM as well, because it's a computed property. So if either content or one of the props.name changed, it would update, run this computed function automatically again, just like it would inside of Vue 2.0. So cool. Let's do that. Let's bring it in. So we'll just say full content, just like that. And instead of it saying content right here, we'll make it say full content as such. And we have an error. So let's see what it says. Property or method is not defined. Full, we need to refresh it. Oh, okay, hold on a second. We got the name. Oh, you know why? Because see, this is what I'm talking about. See, right now we just have a reference to content, but we actually need, you see how we're doing count.value here, and it's giving us the actual value. Right now we're just referencing this object using content. So if we want to actually get the value out of content and use that value, we need to target it using content or the name of our thing dot value, and you can see it pops in right there. Because cool, pretty neat. I like it. Oh, we need to make sure we add our exclamation mark there. Update you fool. All right, there we go. Cool. That works just all right and peachy. So it's pretty, it's pretty straightforward. It's not all that complicated. It just, it's a lot more kind of like open to how you want to like structure your Vue components versus it being in this like kind of like set guideline or boilerplate kind of like roadmap of how you need to build your components, which I feel like might be kind of beneficial, and it might be also not very as beneficial, but who knows, we'll see. Okay, so dashboard, we kind of Vue 3ified it, which is dope. That's cool. All right, let's take a look at our app, and I wonder how we use, if it does it talk about using child components in this at all. Div watch. So the watch is vastly improved inside of Vue 3 versus what we're currently using inside of Vue 2 as well. It's going to be a pretty good improvement. I'm looking forward to using it. So, sorry if my mic has been a little low, if it's not been close enough to my mouth, but it is a basic example of a watch property. So we can have have like a getter that gets watched, and we can also have a callback included as well, and we get access to the new value and the old value, of course. Complex or watching multiple values. Life cycles, we'll look at that in a second. I just wanted to see ref, slots, attribute, parent, adders, context. Probably just use it the same way. So let's see, let's take a look at the app. Yeah, we're importing it, and we probably don't have to do anything if we just delete this. Okay, so let's take this out, and we're gonna swap this out for the Vue 3 as well. So import, let's make sure we bring in value right away. That's what we're gonna need. I think that's all we're gonna need, because we just have 3 data properties that we're bringing in that we need to convert over. So value from Vue-Function-Api. Cool. Now we can actually just comment that out, and let's make sure we get our setup function in there. Just like that. Open up that function as so, and 3 things we need to do. We need to do selected component, name, and is admin. And then also we need to do the final thing, which I hope we'll see if you guys can remember what that is when we get to it. So alright, cool. First thing, const selected component, and this is going to just be a string. So value which is that function again that we're calling right here, or from up in the Vue-Function-Api. So we're going to pass in a string that says dashboard right now, just as such. And then let's also just finish off for the other 2 at the moment as well, since they'll be static for the most part. This one will be dynamic, or the selected component one will be dynamic, so we're gonna have to take a closer look at that and see, make sure everything works. But until the other ones, so the name and the is admin boolean are just going to be static, so we can just finish those off right now. So finally, const is admin equals value, and that's actually just going to get true passed into it just as such. Cool. Now, the final thing we need to do is make sure we return our object containing the values we want to use inside of our template. So we have selected component, name, and is admin, just like that. Let's see what we got here. If we give it a refresh, do we have everything working again? It's like we don't even need to worry about it. It's already updating it automatically right here. So that's cool. This is automatically working, so that's awesome. Like that. Cool. So we can actually, let's get rid of this now. We have this flipped over to Vue 3. This as well. Let's delete this. Pretty cool. I like it. It seems pretty straightforward. I mean, once they get some good documentation behind it, I think everybody that had mixed feelings about it are gonna be, you know, falling in love with this way of doing things just as easily, if not even quicker. So it's kind of interesting to see what happens here. Okay. Let's see here. The dashboard is finished. Let's go look at the settings one, because this one has our what is it? Our lifecycle hooks. And it's actually got the activated and deactivated. So those are the ones that get called because we're using the keep alive tag for the dynamic component, so that our data persists. And I believe it still persists all the same. So if we switch it back, yeah, that's right. Give it a refresh, clear out the console. Okay, so let's see. What do we want to do in this one? First thing we need to do is bring in, well, since we have some value or some data stuff that we need to fix or convert, we have 3 lifecycle hooks that we need to bring in. So lifecycle hooks, along with, or as you know, along with the value function, the computed function, all need to be brought in from the Vue-Function-Api. Like, we need to import it just like we would value and computed. So on the top of our script, we're just going to say import, again, an object, and inside of there we'll need to make sure we bring in value for sure. That's all we'll need, because we're just going to swap these 2 properties out. And oh, you can barely see that. You can see it. I figured out how to get it displaying, but you can hardly see the mouse cursor when it's in text mode over here. You can see it over in this window, but that's awesome. Sorry, complete sidetrack ADD moment. Anyways, so we need to bring in these 3. So let's bring in. So we can't just do created like this. That's not going to work. We need to bring it in using the new way of pulling in functions, which is the on lifecycle method. So I'll just go down to, oops, on this one, we'll go all the way down to the bottom here. Lifecycle. So you can see right here, for example, created is now on created, before mount is now on before mount. Basically, it's just prefixed with on, and then the like camel casing of the lifecycle hook we want, and that's just a function. So essentially, we're going to just recreate this really quick. This is just a function that runs, that we hook into during this point in the instance's life cycle, that it calls this function, and then it runs this callback. We can do some sort of logic in here, just like working with Vue 2.0. So just looks a little bit different, and we can pick and choose what we want to use inside of our Vue 3 components. So how about that? So inside of here, we need to bring in on created, just like this, and we have on activated. These should be ready to go, and on deactivated, although I can't say for sure, so hopefully these on activated and on deactivated are ready to go in this API. I believe they are. We'll have to take a closer look at the actual like entire thing as it comes to fruition more. The entire package will look kind of like how we called window.Vue-Function-Api, so whatever. Alright, so we got that brought in, and now instead of doing this, let's swap this out for how we've been doing it in the past. Or not in the past, but how we've been doing it. So first thing we need is our setup function, and let's just make sure we bring in props just as we did before. So how did we do it? Was it inside of the... Yeah, I think it was inside of here. So if we say props, just like that, it's an object, and we have name, and that is a string, and then we have, what was it? Is admin, and that's a boolean, just like that. Pass props into the setup function just like that, and open up the setup function just like that. And now we just want to say const title equals, so the value function that we want to pass the string saying settings into, so that's right here. And the secondary one, we want to say const content equals value, and we'll just say change up the settings a bit. Just like that. Alright, cool. And let's make sure we can see those now. So we should have nothing in there at the moment, but if we return our new variables, we should have them load in just like that. Cool. And let's see, do we have the props on this one available properly? Prop early? Oh, that was really bad. I'm sorry, I won't do that anymore. We do, they're in there. Alright, cool. Okay, so let's pull in these lifecycle hooks now. So we will do on created just like that, and that is a function that gets called, and that's just, we're going to pass a callback into it, callback function, which is just an arrow function, and we will just console.log this component was, or wait, we shouldn't say this component, we should this, let's make it look all crazy, settings, super crazy, component was just created. All right, cool. Next thing we can do is, oops, no, that's not a comma, it's not an object anymore, it's a function. So we will call on activated, and again, just an arrow function as a callback, and we'll just say console.log, and I'm actually going to copy the string. I don't feel like typing that out all the way every time, but the code is the important part. So we'll say it was just activated, activated, and then last but not least on deactivated, and that's again going to be a function that takes a callback as an arrow function, and we'll say console.log and pass in our string one more time, and instead of created we want to say deactivated. Alright, cool. So that should be what we need to do. And if we have the console open and we pop over to settings, you can say boom. You see it was just over there, and now it's gonna just like just like all the lifecycle hooks. So you have access to all the lifecycle hooks in this syntax format that you would normally have access to in the Vue 2.0 API as well. So just a little FYI on that as well. All right, so that is a good point right there. Where is this? Custom events. I just want to take a look and see what's going on with all this stuff. This is using Vuex. And custom events, interesting. I wonder how the slots would work. Seems interesting to try. Interesting. All right. Okay. So I think instead of doing these ones more, I think since we talked about quite a bit, I'm going to call it an evening for this live stream session, and maybe we can look at it closer further on down the road. Look at it this weekend for sure. Is going to be on the 10th. Make sure you're tuning in. Probably do it in the afternoon. We're just gonna do live stream and just kind of doing a chill session and hanging out and kind of celebrating the 1-year channelversary of RabbitWerks JavaScript. So thanks to all the subs, all 245 people. Really appreciate all the support and all the constant, view time and stuff. Really means a lot. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends, share with your homies and your resource channels and whatnot. So we much appreciate it. But whatever you want to do is cool. Yeah, so I'll probably get some more details finalized on that later in the week. But we'll probably just do a chill programming hangout session and stuff for a couple hours or so. If you want to get down on that, Central Standard Time, August 10th. Yeah, August 10th. It'll probably be early afternoon-ish. So anyways, I hope this I'm gonna close this. I hope this has kind of been informative and kind of a nice sneak peek into taking something that we've done in Vue 2.0 and kind of looking at and converting it over to use the new Vue 3.0 function-based API that's going to be coming out with the new major version release of Vue. So it's been interesting. I learned a lot. There's more stuff that I want to look into for sure. I can definitely see myself using this a lot sooner than later, versus holding out, because it's just so, once you really learn it, I feel like if you, like I said earlier in the stream, is like if you have mild experience with Vue and you really take a look at this and like just kind of look at it, piece for piece, then picking this new API syntax up shouldn't be a problem at all, and that it'll actually make your code a lot more elegant and work probably a lot better, because they've kind of like bulletproofed it even more so than they could using the object-based API that we've been using so much. So don't say no yet. Don't judge a book by its cover, because it could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Anyways, I'm gonna push this code to GitHub. If you want to take a look at it, feel free. Excuse me. If you want to talk about Vue, feel free to jump in the Discord. The link is in the description. We're always looking to chat about good stuff like that in there. Make sure to give this video a like and comment. Let me know what you're thinking about the Vue 3 API yourself, if you're using it already, if you are apprehensive about it and why, and all that good stuff. So let me know what you're thinking. I'd be interested to hear. Maybe we can start up a good conversation. I'd like to do some more videos on the Vue 3 function-based API. Maybe look at it, how to use it in conjunction with Vuex and like as a CDN or whatever. Just kind of like tying all those pieces together. So we'll have to see where things go. Next thing on the list for the project series is going to be a short series on just doing like a login, sign up, authentication kind of thing, front end and back end, in Node.js, Express, and all that stuff, doing authentication. Kind of going to be closely or loosely based around CJ or Coding Garden with CJ's auth from scratch noob quest. And so basically we're going to take, because that was like a live coding session with him and a buddy of his, that there was a lot of like pauses and a lot of talking. So I'm going to just try and condense it down and completely credit all of him for like, teaching me how to do all that stuff through his videos, but like make sure that he can or that we're just gonna kind of get like a more succinct, more summarized version of it, and actually finish through to getting him both the front and the back end deployed to Netlify for the front and now.sh for the back. So it's gonna be a lot of fun and shouldn't be too complicated of a project. We're not going to go too overboard on anything. The front end can be done in vanilla or any front end framework. We might even try and do it in the new the Vue-Function-Api syntax. So let me know what you think or what you want to see. If you want to see it in vanilla, if you want to see it in React, if you want to see it in Vue, if you want to see it in Vue 3, if you want to see it in something else, I don't know. But just let me know. We'll have to see what happens. Anyways, I'm going to hit it. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Live Coding with RabbitWerks JavaScript. Make sure to check the code out on GitHub after the fact. I'll push it up as soon as this live stream is finished. Again, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell for notifications so you can get all the notifications for live streaming sessions in the future. And of course, have a great day, night, afternoon, morning, all that good stuff, and stay awesome, keep coding, and all that good stuff. So have a good night. Peace. This has been Sean with RabbitWerks JavaScript. We'll see you Saturday, August 10th.
This is that once in a lifetime